everybody, welcome to another edition of the Futurum Tech Webcast. I'm your host, Daniel Newman, Principal Analyst, Founding Partner at Futurum Research. Excited for today's episode. It's part of our interview series where we will be talking with experts across industries in partnership with SAP. And the first one is going to be all about professional services. I have two great guests with me today. I have Hans Kroes and Ross Dawson. And so before we get started and jump into the show talking about this topic, let's do a quick round of introductions. Hans, I'm going to start off with you. Hans, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Dan, for having me today. My name is Hans Kroes. I lead our industry business unit for professional services globally at SAP, which means we are, on the one side, looking at trends and working with our customer base on how can we make sure our portfolio fits to their needs, and then also, for sure, translate this back to our product engineering organization, that we get the solutions that help our customers deliver their value client there.
Well, Hans, welcome to the show. Ross, all the way from Australia. Not going to tell everybody what time it is because it may be the middle of the night, but they'll feel your energy either way. Morning, evening, welcome to the show.
Wonderful to be here. So I'm Ross Dawson. I'm a futurist, keynote speaker and author. So my fifth book is coming out soon, Thriving on Overload, on how to deal with unlimited information. But my first book back in January 2000 was on the future of professional services. So I've spent a long time around the professional services sector with a few other bits and pieces thrown in between.
Well, I admire all the writing. I've written 7. My most recent I wrote in 2018 called Human Machine. And I've taken a hiatus of like 3 or 4 years now. I did 7 in just under 8.5 years. I wrote 7 books, and
good going.
I can't even imagine though anyone else being as crazy. So you sound like you're on that same trajectory as me. But you know what? There's nothing more interesting than the knowledge you take away when you get into that depth of research about something, and then the ability to hopefully translate and add all kinds of interesting color to a topic like professional services here. So I'm really excited to have you both here. It's going to be a great topic. Let's start with that big 2000 book you wrote that's probably evolved quite a bit over the last 2 decades, and talk about what's kind of going on in terms of the change of the landscape of professional services. So, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen the amount of data and information change at great scale. Talk a little bit about how you're seeing the industry at large evolving.
So my book at the time was about knowledge-based relationships, and this idea that knowledge and relationships are inextricable, and that's the heart of all value creation. I think that sort of thesis is pretty well borne out. So 2 major factors driving, all work and value, but in particular professional services, are AI and connectivity. So work can be done anywhere, and there are greater and greater machine capabilities. So this means we need to reconfigure what professional service firms are. It means that you don't all need to be in the same office. The talent can be anywhere. We can blur the boundaries of organizations to be able to have internal talent, external talent, crowdsourced talent, client talent, combine that in different ways to be able to create the insights and value which we require. Be able to use that as one facet to be able to build more scalable services for delivery, particularly for global clients. But one of the other pieces is as we start to see more and more automation from what was delivered by humans to now being replaced by simple workflow to sometimes what are quite pointed knowledge-based tasks, for example, in legal or in engineering and so on, now being done by algorithms. So this redefines the nature of that professional as the expert human, how they are supported by technology. And so we're configuring a new style of professional service firm, which is this amalgam of distributed talent plus technology to be able to create a far higher level of service delivery to clients than we've ever been able to do before.
It's interesting. I love that word, amalgamation, which is all the things that we're sort of bringing together now to make services what they've become. Because basically we've just taken what used to be a very human-led practice of great depth of knowledge into one that's being coupled with technology at scale that's never been seen before and at a pace that's faster than anything we've ever experienced. And that's what the whole digital transformation topic is really about. It's about pace. It's about injecting pace into change. Professional service firms tend to be leading the way. Hans, you're obviously working with hundreds, if not more, thousands of companies. SAP has a massive customer library. Um, and having led this business, I imagine you're seeing quite a bit of change yourself. What are some of the big changes you've seen in the past, uh, multiple, you can do multiple decades, or in this case, even just a few years, because in either case, I'm sure you can speak to quite a bit of evolution that's going on around you.
No, true. I think it's in two ways. One is, let's say, the business propositions my customers put out to the market, right? And typically, professional services firms are leading a lot of industry change. They are the first to come up with a business proposition, how to make life sustainable in manufacturing and many other. And they can more and more do this now based upon data, right? The data they collect from their end clients and how they reutilize that in order to build those business propositions. And then become those experts on top of that. So the technology is driving this. I think even in a faster pace that they're building up these. And the automation of the data also leads to they could do it faster, potentially even in a better commercial way. I think the one thing, and that's something that kind of happens over the past 3 years, I still see a lot of professional services firms internally operate quite traditionally. Right? There's a lot of time material. They consider to think, hey, if we double the resources, we will double the revenue, which is not the case. And this is the mind shift and change they still need to make. We should make better use of technology. We should implement that technology into our propositions to the end customers much more, and then consider exchanging or extending the business models that we have. They start to do it at a smaller scale. I would see some of the pioneers, the smaller firms, right, that are more local or regionally driven, that have their technical savvy knowledge in-house. They become front runners here. The advantage there is that they could be global instantly, right? Ross, you spoke about connectivity. Right? We see a lot of firms that they might reside local, but they deliver their services all around the globe because the data would help them to get there, and the internet and the services would allow them to do that quite easily. So, whereas their business propositions, they start to go into that technology direction. Interestingly enough, internally, right, they still need to make that mind change and shift. And that's what we're working on from our angle to say, hey, now you have a platform for the future, right? Your traditional time material business can easily evolve into more technology-driven services. You can pack them all in one commercial offer to the end customer. Think about your phone bill you get every month, right? You pay for your phone, you pay for your data, you pay for your text messages, etc. Those models in telco and different industries we can now easily apply into the ProServe industry. But it's time to start adopting and going into that, because there might be disruptors in the market that otherwise would potentially take over that business from you.
Yeah. Hans, you covered a lot of ground there. And so something I glommed onto that you said, though, is about scale. You talked about doubling the size of the organization and doubling the revenue, and that there's definitely been a decoupling of professional service firms kind of historically acting a little bit like law firms, right? Where it's you add more associates on, those associates are billable by the hour. The higher the level, the higher the billings, the higher the billings, the higher the margins. And technology has been a great disruptor. You talked about automation a little bit in there, which is a really interesting point. I did an op-ed recently in MarketWatch where I talked about sort of the decoupling of markets and which tech companies are going to be the winners, and the way we sort of are discerning winners in what I would call a contracting or challenged economy, which is where we are right now. In mid 2022, I always like to put those reference points in these things because people listen to these things forever. But mid 2022, we were seeing some contractions in the economy, and that the companies that have deflationary aspects of their technology in the enterprise are actually going to do quite well. Things like AI, automation, process mining, analytics, where you can actually streamline, you can potentially up level the best talent in your organization, and concurrently you can streamline and automate processes that are sort of routine, redundant, mundane. And professional service organizations, I imagine, are being sort of looked into that. The other thing, though, about your comment about scale, Hans, it's really interesting, is that new, faster, more nimble, smaller, or virtual firms are popping up now, right? I mean, it used to be sort of the architecture of a firm is this giant organism, and those are still out there, but we're seeing different sort of makeups with things like remote and hybrid and flexible works. Are you seeing virtual firms play a pretty big role in terms of disrupting the professional services landscape, Hans?
They, I think they're starting to come there. I think if you look at the last 2.5 years, right, in the whole COVID situation, we all got forced to work from home. And I think this has helped to break a lot of these traditional rules, right? If I see you provide output. I think all process firms around the globe by now have delivered a complete virtual project, big or small, right? And from simple to very complex, because they had to, right? Nobody could travel. Customers would say, "Don't come to my office," right? Because we want to make sure nobody gets infected. I think the situation has proven that the mix of being on site, the mix of being remote, and utilizing technology, that is going to help. And I'm sure that situation will continue as we go forward, right? There's a cost perspective, right? The T&E on bigger projects, if you look at North America, where people used to travel 150 days a year, right? This will be different, right? I certainly hope so, that we find a much better balance between those elements, right? And that hopefully also helps for those bigger firms to transform, saying, hey, if I have an expert at home, the person could work on 3 different accounts a day, spending 2 to 3 hours on it, while instead of traveling to one facility and doing 8 hours, and we could also need that person somewhere else. So the reuse of capacity on top of technology, I think that's something that we'll see to continue, and that's what most of the companies tell me as well.
Yeah, I would think so. Ross, do you run a virtual business? I mean, obviously, you're out there speaking. As a microcosm of the industry, right? I mean, you're probably seeing quite a bit of growth to that virtual business
Absolutely.
model.
I've been a big believer, and I guess long forecast. One of my books has been on crowdsourcing and creating value with crowds. And so in professional services, it has progressed massively, but it's not quite as fast as I expected. But it's of course accelerated massively in the last couple of years. So I think there's a few points there. As as Hans and you have suggested, part of it is that traditional firms are starting to have their staff sometimes located anywhere and be able to work completely virtually. We are seeing that large firms are also sometimes using completely external talent. So initiatives like Deloitte Pixel, for example, where they're using external talent, and the other number of other major professional firms are doing that. But also a little the rise, not to massive scale, but to quite significant in some sectors, firms which are essentially virtual firms. Axiom Law in the legal industry, Eden McCallum in strategy consulting, and some others which have more interesting configurations, like 10x for defined projects in strategy, where they have a distributed team of graduates from the major strategy firms, or Wikistrat, for example, which again uses crowds to be able to create value. So there's more and more configurations, more and more possibilities. And we're seeing that both major firms, mid-sized firms are restructuring to have a high degree of virtual firms, but also more and more the rise of these pure born virtual firms that are sometimes having some really significant impact in creating real client value at sometimes more effective pricing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of pricing, that's something I wanted to run through with you, is monetization models. I'm hearing all kinds of different things in the continuum of monetization. Obviously, like I said, it used to be sort of a day's work for a day's pay. And I'm being a little facetious when I say that. But, we're hearing things with everything being measurable now, at least the idea that everything's measurable now. We're seeing more and more of this sort of outcome as a service. We're seeing results as a service, performance payments. Are professional services firms seeing any evolution in sort of the way they're being compensated, especially some of these larger projects where there's going to be more key metrics associated to payments? Are we getting to a point where things like outcome-based models are realistic, and the fact that companies can make sure they're achieving targets and making them measurable? Because I don't know, even personally as a research and analysis firm, I feel sort of nervous because there's so many interdependent models of what you give, what you get, how fast your clients respond, how accurate the information you're given. Can we get to a point where subscriptions and outcome-based can actually be a steady drumbeat of the way professional services interact with their enterprise clients? Ross, I'll have you kick that one off.
Well, it's very sectoral. So the alternative fee structures are not new. Again, probably 30 years old, we started to get some interesting, at times, projects which were outcome based in whatever sense. So sometimes, and one of the questions is, and where is it client led, and where is it firm led? And in fact, we have seen in quite a few sectors we have been client led. But one of the models is subscription. And so one great example of that is major firms trying to deal with mid-tier or smaller clients, where they can say, all right, we can structure using a combination of technology and sometimes some human expertise. We can price this so that we know what it costs us, provides a subscription, known the client knows what they're paying. So I think there's more and more subscription models, and particularly when we look at platform-based delivery. Also, and as you said, everything is measurable. So there's some great collaboration. So BCG with KLM is a wonderful example where they have a joint venture. They first of all get efficiencies in KLM's operations, and then provide a service together based on what they've learned to be able to share the value which is created. So you can measure more, but there are some places where either side will say, we just want to stick with, well, paying for people's time. So it will continue to evolve. There will be more and more interesting models, particularly as we get more essentially data to be able to, ones where we can agree that this is a fair assessment of value created. So I think there's going to be more innovation, more experimentation, and we're going to add new pricing models rather than replace old ones.
Yeah, so we wrote this paper together with SAP and the team, and hopefully, if you're out there listening to this, you'll hit the show notes, check this paper out, because we touch on some of these topics, especially the idea of how we're sort of seeing the interactions and compensation changing between the professional services firms and their enterprise clients. These companies are paramount. They are imperatives to their businesses and have been for a long time. And so the idea is sometimes that these symbiotic partnerships that exist between firms and professional services organizations, it always creates tension, I think, when you start to say, well, we don't trust the work. And I'm taking risk here, Hans, so bear with me. We don't trust the work. We're only going to pay if we get a certain outcome. So I don't think we're going to get quite to that end of the continuum yet. But I do think in a world where everything has become so much more measurable, I do think companies are going to say, hey, we bonus our employees on performance. We have performance, improvement programs that, we decide which companies or individuals we keep working with. Is it the same here? I mean, with SAP working with so many firms, I imagine you're starting to at least hear the whisperings. What are you seeing on that end of change? Is it happening fast, slow? What do you see over the next couple of years? Is it going to evolve?
I think that the first step into the outcome-based models is, let's say, SAP as a company, why we do the huge transition to cloud. Especially in the cloud ERP domain, mission critical business processes amongst all 25 industries, and going for software as a service, meaning highly standardization of your core processes, and on top of that, might build tailored solutions which would fit and make you unique. On that first step, we see a transition with many of our firms, big and small, as they do these implementations, to move from time material already to almost fixed price, saying we can do the following for you in an X number of days for a country in a specific financial entity, etc., or build that out and be pretty confident that they can deliver on that in a profitable manner without no additional statements of work, etc. Because the model is so that using a pre-configured system like S/4HANA Cloud, etc., can assure them that they can achieve that. Right, driving that change mindset with the customer is more important on implementation than the software itself and the adoption there. What I do see on top of that is, as customers build their foundation on such a cloud ERP, is that in smaller topics like a CFO might say, I want to improve my day sales outstanding. It's now at, 44 days. I want to bring it back to 40. that many firms would say, hey, we've built up that knowledge with many other customers and clients where we've done this. So we could deliver this as an outcome, right? If we reach 42, we get X. If we reach 40, we get X. And if we go lower, there would be a bonus in there, because they feel so confident that they can control the change process here. I'm with you, Ross, on that one, right? If it's much more on the client side and there's so many uncertainties, you wouldn't go outcome-based that easily. But if you're more in control as a firm, you could steer the process in a certain direction, definitely, right? And I think if the commercials would even go both ways, right? If we achieve something, there's in it for both of us, right? From a client and firm perspective. These models will grow, but I think they need to grow with smaller projects before a full ERP implementation will be an outcome-based model. I think that's a little bit future, so to say.
And by the way, I mean, there could be huge upside for the professional services firms. Those that have the confidence, the visibility, the read into the market, that are, know that their intelligence and their competencies and capabilities are going to bring outsized results.
And you can imagine the word on the street, right? If it becomes known that these customers, that they actually help other firms to improve their business, work on their value, and achieve those outcomes, right? It's great for the brand as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, the business development expert that comes into your company and says, hey, I think I can grow you by 20%, but I'm going to want 30% of everything I bring. Well, and it's a little bit of it's a oversimplified model, but the point is that level of confidence and saying, hey, I'm going to tie myself to an outcome, but it's going to be a very lucrative one for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
When we, and I think as firms, like I said, with data, information, models, AI, automation processes, and a track record, could move to that model and actually see growth and see it become a growth opportunity. So that kind of lends us to the talent side of the house, though. You're going to need incredible talent to accomplish those kinds of results. So you can go to any model you want, but in the end, I genuinely believe most professional services firms that make it grow and become household names within organizations do so because the talent that they bring to the table is seen as world-class, differentiated, unique, all those different things. So we're in an interesting impasse when it comes to talent, Ross, and I'm sure in your books you talk about this quite a bit. But we've got the labor shortages, we've got low labor participation, we've got companies stuck right now overpaying for every contractor, every employee. Of course, we're starting to see maybe that balance out with the changing in Fed policy and higher interest rates and potentially a little bit of a recession. But talent is got to be one of the most important things to making a professional services firm work. So what's your thoughts on sort of the space of talent, nurturing talent, finding, identifying, keeping, and making sure you're able to put the best talent forth to your clients?
Well, as you suggest, so every industry is creating value through a combination of essentially technology and processes and people. And professional services is based on professionals, and professionals are people that have expertise and apply that, supported by technologies, applied through technologies. But the humans are at the heart of this. And so that combination of technology and humans is absolutely central. Now, I believe that in this world, the one thing that will attract talent is the ability to learn. So this is all about as John Hagel puts it, the shift from scalable efficiency to scalable learning. So if you can implement in a professional service firm that you can scale the learning of the individual, which flows through to their peers, which flows through the organization, which flows through to their clients and their ability to learn, that is the winning formula. No professional wants to stay static because you're losing your livelihood in a fast-changing world. So all firms need to be based on how it is that you can accelerate the learning. And so one of the key things about learning is more and more that it is peer learning. You are learning with your peers, the other experts which are on the edge. You don't want to work with somebody that doesn't have access to those, whether those are internal experts or external experts. So this comes to the field of talent networks. And my second book about living networks and this idea of how it is that we bringing the networks to life through our connections. And fundamentally, any successful firm, but particularly a professional firm, is a high performance network. where the right people are connected the right way in the right time to address the client's challenges and opportunities. And in that way, both learning, co-creating knowledge and co-creating value inside the firm and with the clients. And there's obviously many other facets, such as the conditions, be able to work remotely, engagement. But learning and the ability to learn and designing a firm for learning is what indubitably will attract the best talent.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And, as we sort of head towards the end of this, I want to kind of have a run on one last topic. And Hans, I'm going to want you to maybe tie the talent topic here to this final topic about platforms, because this is almost the penultimate example of the amalgamation of humans and technology coming together, right? The platform is the enabler. Every company on the planet right now is quote unquote becoming a platform company. That's a little bit of a exaggeration, but that is the way it feels right now. Nobody has a point product or service. You're a platform. But in the professional services space, you really do need to have a platform to offer excellence to your customers. That excellence is a platform that brings together people, technology, products, processes, all the different things that sort of are at the core. So what do you see as sort of the evolution going forward that is going to enable companies to A, become professional services platforms, and B, do so while attracting and growing and nurturing the best talent on the planet?
It's an interesting question, because I think, well, I take the future as going two ways. One would be perhaps all professional services experts become freelancers, right? And they go on the platform, they deliver their service, and they get call it pay per use, pay per transaction, or whatever they deliver in a networked, in a business network, so to say, where they can deliver to multiple clients or to multiple firms that then go to their end customers. If you look at I would say that the next generation professional experts, they tend to have a little bit of a different point of view on how they want to live, right? How they want to build their careers, how they want to utilize technology much more, right? They were born with the iPhone in their hand, more or less, right? We're a little bit older before that all got started. So that's one way, I think. And with that, I think for firms in the future, it's going to be really tough to do whatever possible, right, to retain talent as part of your organization. I think the firms need to figure out what's the benefit of having so many people at the company. Should we rather not become a networked company where we're open to utilize the expertise when we require this, or on a regular basis, right? Make sure we can buy it in, or perhaps connect with smaller firms that can deliver some of these pieces. I think the other parts, future would be, I think professional service experts will be more data analysts, and on top of can then deliver the expertise in a communicative way, because the data is going to help them to really proof point next steps on where their end customers or that service should go to. And it's a little bit the opposite of, if you look at a company like Accenture, 500,000 employees today, ambition to perhaps go tenfold in the next 10 years, right? So to massively scale how many people you would have, you could say, is that having total control. I think that's a thing, especially, I would say, management of our age, so to say, or those that are a little bit traditionally looking at it, need to change that mindset about how bigger the team and more experts, how more I can deliver to the customer, versus perhaps I should be much more agile and lean and get the expertise when I need it, but just make sure I have the network behind me in order to deliver as such. I think that's the nice tension, I would say, towards the market here.
And I think it's okay to have some of that tension. In fact, I think that tension is going to be critical for the ability for these firms to improve. As an outsider looking in, I think there are some firms that are doing tremendous work, and I think there are some that are very much stuck in old modalities, and it's going to be upon them to find those new opportunities, whether that's with technology, changing talent, changing the way they monetize their business, changing the way they hire and where they hire people, to make sure they've got that right talent. And you guys have kind of brought that up throughout the show, but I think the thing is companies like yours, whether it's Ross, you working with individual companies or speaking to groups, or Hans, SAP working to provide technologies and platforms is that stagnation or stagnant practices are going to kill a lot of companies. And you're going to see disruptors enter the space. You're going to see old, well-known professional service firms get crushed, and you're going to see new ones rise from the ashes of those, especially, like I said, in these tougher economic moments. And by the way, in that paper, we talk about all of this stuff at sort of at large. And hopefully, if you haven't, got the cue from me yet, get in there and check it out. You'll want to hit that download button, because it's just, a next layer of information. But Ross, I'm going to let you do the futurist thing to end this conversation here. We sort of just talked about the bringing the platforms and the people together. You had a really eloquent way of tying those things together. But let's talk just about the metaverse, because everybody's interested in that, right? We talked about more virtual, more remote, but are we going to be like strapping on some sort of glasses, at least the size of the ones I'm wearing right now, maybe significantly larger, with a tether and a wire? Are we going to be meeting with our clients and developing products, building product services, and doing strategy meetings in the metaverse in the future? Is that technology going to be a breakthrough for this industry?
Well, yes, but the timeframes are the big uncertainty. So I kind of think that I'm a futurist. One of the things you can think, there are some things which are inevitable, but you don't know how long they're going to take. And I think it is inevitable that at some time in the future, we will have the technologies where, whether those are augmented contact lenses, or anybody that already wears glasses is choosing to augment them, or other types of holographic displays external to us, whatever it may be, we will more and more have the ability to experience other people who are not in the same part of the planet feeling as if they're in the same room. And so we're getting close to that with a lot of avatar-based technologies, and now more and more hyper-realistic avatars. But this is like a decade, I think. The latest is that Apple is supposed to release its mixed reality glasses in early next year. We have others that are still sort of playing slowly in this. But I mean, I think we're talking 5-10 years to when this really starts to be something which is, we consider an everyday in the, moving beyond the flat screens for our video calls to far more immersive experiences. But that will be transformational.
Yeah, and I love it. Like I said, I see all these things as sort of they're happening in parallel, these technologies. In some cases, the biggest problem I think in a lot of our world right now is our desire to make everything binary. Are we going to do it all in the metaverse? No. Is everything going to the cloud? No. Is everything going to be done with AI? No. Are those things going to be augmenting a lot of things? Yes. Will great companies be applying analytics and systems and technologies? And yes. And by the way, all of history, the companies that have been able to apply the next wave of disruptive technologies have outperformed those companies that stuck with the old way, right? I mean, nobody's dialing a rotary phone anymore. Nobody's paging, nobody's sending you a page when they need you to call them back. Companies all use Zoom or video of some type to be able to bring people into meetings. I'm saying, like, we're adopting, but being able to do it a little faster, being able to embrace a little bit more data, being able to see the potential of new technologies, certainly something that sets the best professional services organizations apart from those that lag. Ross, Hans, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate having you on the Futurum Tech Webcast.
Great pleasure.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Ross.
So what a great topic, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoyed what you heard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to the Futurum Tech Webcast. And also, if you haven't heard me mention, there is a really cool paper where we talk about the evolution and what's going on and the challenges for professional services organizations. Click on that to learn more there. Also, we'll have some information on both of our guests. So if you want to click and learn more about Ross's books or about Hans' work at SAP, you'll definitely be able to learn more about them in the show notes as well. Thanks, SAP, for being a partner and being part of this podcast series. But for now, I got to say goodbye. We'll see you all later.